Okay, we got a good one today. So the last chat I had was with my nephew Mikey, who I took some heat in the comments section because I have a big habit of asking a question, and Molly gave me a 411 on this, but I have a habit of asking a question in my chats, and then not allowing the person that I'm interviewing to answer that question, and I'll usually answer it for them. So if I get to that point today, please jump in, say, Corin, shut the hell up, let me answer the question. But without further ado, coming to you live is something that is very rare, and this doesn't happen that often, but we're actually speaking to someone in the future right now, which is pretty cool. So you guys are looking at my best friend, since I could probably say my first friend, my longest friend, my best friend, my man Randy. So I'll give you a little background on Randy, and then I'll let him introduce himself. But like I said, Randy is actually coming live to us from Australia, from down under. So Randy is my longest tenured friend. He's my best friend. I've known him since we were babies in New York. But Randy, if you want to introduce yourself and let people know, what the deal is, the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. So really excited. I've been watching your show for a while now. Started off watching Kyle and Corin after I met your boy Kyle at your wedding.
Yeah.
And got into his podcast, and then you guys started your show, and then when you started this thing up, I think I hit you up like right after your first drop with Molly, and I was like, hey, how can I get on this thing?
Yeah.
Because we got to definitely catch up. So, yeah, I'm calling from the future. It is currently 11:18 in the morning on Saturday, April 6th.
Which is wild. It was tough scheduling this because for anybody who's tried to talk to someone in Australia or I don't know where else has a crazy different time change, China maybe or something, but the time difference is so different. So it's like, working this out with you is just wild to me because it's my Friday night here and it's your Saturday morning, and it's just mind-boggling to me that there's that big of differences between these places in the world, and that yet we could still connect over Skype, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I know, it's great. I mean, what's real trippy is like when we fly back to the States, I'll leave at like 11 a.m. on Saturday. Like if I were to fly out tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or fly out today, leave at 11 a.m. on the 6th of April, I would land in DC after 24 hours of travel on Saturday, April 6th at like 3 p.m.
Yeah, that's nuts.
So like I'd only lose like a couple hours. But then when I fly back, like if I were to leave on your Friday, I get into Australia on Sunday. So I drop a day on the flight.
Yeah.
It's just wild, man. It's so wild. I still can't wrap my head around it. Like tomorrow I'm going to watch some Final Four action. Starts at a bright 9 a.m. time on a Sunday morning. But then I'm done. I'm done by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's great.
Yeah, that was always the craziest thing for me. So like I can't keep track of days of the week here in the States, and I have never really been so far abroad that like I've been to California and there's time change there, but like I couldn't even imagine flying from Australia back to the States and then having to figure out what day of the week it was, what time it was. My body is like reacting to that time change. So I give you a lot of props because, like I said, I don't even know what day it is today, and having to adjust to that stuff coming back home is probably crazy.
Yeah. Coming back home is really the tough one. Honestly, when you fly back to Australia, like, yeah, you drop a day,
Mm-hmm.
but because of like the hours of the flight, it's actually not too bad. Plus, there's like, you can probably see there's a ton of sunlight here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sunny like every damn day of the week. So it's pretty easy to adjust. But like I just went back home and it was wintertime and gray out, and like my body was just, I was waking up at like 1:30 in the morning. So like I was good to rage all night.
Yeah.
But man, my days were real rough.
Yeah, and we'll get into Australia a little bit more because I'm still fascinated at that. Like you'll be watching March Madness and drinking beers at 9 a.m. potentially, and like I'll be enjoying them at night and in how it's supposed to be. But I guess if you've grown up in Australia, all you've ever known is basketball and football and stuff like that, bright in the morning. You think it's weird that I watch it at nighttime, So it's like you've seen both
we'll have to
sides
get
of it.
into that. Yeah, we'll have to get into that. There's also some like crazy sports they got out here.
Oh
so
yeah,
we'll have to talk about that too.
So let's work a little timeline for people because like I said, you are my longest, friend that I've had for forever. But there was a big like jump in between our friendship. Our friendship was always there, but there was a big space because let's take it back all the way to New York. And I don't know if you've got a memory of the first time we met. Or
I do.
Okay, so
I
break
do.
it down.
I remember this.
All right.
Yeah, so we met on the first day at kindergarten.
Oof.
So I went out Rockledge Road outside my house, got picked up by the bus, and went up that hill and picked you up. And I remember you got on that bus and you sat next to me.
Nice.
And it was like, hey, what's up? And then like after that, like we were just like friends all the time, like hanging out up and down the street there. And when I think about it, like we didn't even have class together till like fourth grade or something like that. Like we were never in the same classes, even though we went to the same schools. But we were hanging out every afternoon, every weekend, playing wiffle ball in your front yard.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, that's kind of how it all got started.
I remember you had the N64, I think, in your house, and that used to be the spot where we would just run through GoldenEye, we'd run through Super Mario Brother, or what was it, Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And then
that was, you'd be eating all my snacks at my house.
Yep.
My mom always bought like extra fruit roll-ups and Gushers and stuff. So like when I watch your show now, I tell my mom like, yeah, he's still eating those snacks every day.
So if you're keeping up to date with the channel, I've actually switched I've tried to make a change. And the last Kyle and Corin was the first one where I didn't eat any junk food. And I'm switching it up to back to healthy because I've had too many videos where I'm eating crap, I'm eating junk food, and people say, I'm going to have a heart attack, and that'll probably make for great Corin's World footage, but it won't make good footage for me. Maybe Molly can take over the channel. But to our friendship, I think we had such a strong friendship as young kids that went till about, I would say, 6th or 7th grade. And then
6th grade.
6th grade, and then you moved to Florida, which to me was like devastating because like you were my best friend.
Same.
And like when you had told me that, I mean, for anybody out there, if you have a best friend at that age, it's like you do everything together. It's after school, my parents would let me go to your house. We'd play wrestling. We'd, everything. So to hear someone is moving to a whole different state was just like, I'll never see him again. Like the only time I go to Florida is with my family, and then we go to Universal and Disney. So I'll never see you. What were your memories of being that young? And a lot of times parents, they'll say with their kids if they want to change schools with them, it's usually at a younger age or at an older age maybe where they can transition a little bit better. But I feel like at 6th grade, that must have been tough for you to move down to Florida and really like have to find new friends. And like what was that transition like moving to Florida when you had such a strong maybe friends and you were very much into baseball in New York? So like what was that jump to Florida like for you? Because it was rough for me.
Yeah. No, so like on like our friendship wise, like definitely like real rough. I'd say like what made it a little bit easier, or maybe a lot of it easier, was the fact that my cousin Danny, who you know really well now too, he's 4 days older than me. I used to hang out with him on some summers. So we moved to his house honestly for a couple months before my parents found a house down there. So that definitely like made the transition a little bit easier, like outside of school. But in school, like, I mean, you know me, I'm kind of a quiet dude. I just, I was always into schoolwork and trying to get good grades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much just like head down, focused on school while I was like, between the bells, so to speak. And that's kind of how I ran all the way straight through high school. I mean, I picked up some buddies through my cousin, who were like, real close. They were like my best men and stuff like that during my wedding. And then obviously like, baseball kind of took off for me down in South Florida. Cause I started pitching and like, I just changed up my stuff. I was playing outfield and stuff in Elmsford League, and that just wasn't working cause I couldn't hit worth anything, but,
don't sell yourself short.
So yeah, no, I couldn't hit. So the transition was definitely rough. I think like between you and I, what I always thought was crazy is that, we didn't have iPhones or anything like that. We couldn't do this kind of Skype stuff.
Yeah.
I remember like when we got like our first AIM accounts, like on AOL Instant Messenger, and I'd hit you up on Corn Chip
Yeah,
11
you had that
and
Shop Blocker 99.
Shop Blocker 99. I still use that.
Shout
I
out.
don't use the AOL anymore, but I use that all the time as like my junk email and my login for stuff. Like
That was a
a lot of my
classic.
bank, like I should be saying there's a lot of my banking stuff is
Yeah,
like
don't
Shop
say
Blocker
that.
related. Don't go hacking my stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so like I remember the first time I got on that, and you and I started messaging, and it was like, man, we hadn't talked in months, and it was just like we didn't skip a beat. And then you finally like came down to visit one time, and again, same kind of thing. Like that's why I always thought our friendship was a little different in that like we could go long periods of time and then just catch up, and it was like, we had seen each other yesterday kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So I always thought that was kind of crazy, but like I was also like pretty cool. Like I don't know that I had that kind of relationship with anybody.
No, yeah, that was something that I felt was great too. Because I mean, I was gonna say to you, I don't know, like a lot of my friends or people that I've spoken to that like can honestly say that they still keep in touch with like their first ever friend. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's people out there that are like, my first friend was Chris, and we were best friends since we were babies. But like,
Right.
you change over time. So I mean, like, yes, when we were however old we were up until sixth grade, we were into the same things like N64 and WWF wrestling and wiffle ball. But as you get older, and you start to become interested in science and stuff like that. And I really don't even like science at all, but like, but we still manage to find a common ground of things that we're interested in. Whereas a lot of times, friends they grow apart because they're not interested in the same stuff that all kids are usually interested in. Is like, so that's something that I was always grateful for as well. But a question I had for you was, because when I always saw a new kid come to high school or middle school, they were sort of like that outcast. Did you ever feel like that? Because you also went to a big high school down in Florida. But
Yeah.
did you ever, and maybe not so much because you played baseball and you were pretty good at baseball, so that team aspect might have helped you. But did you ever feel like an outcast of being that new kid in school or something like that?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just my personality. I never really cared about that.
Yeah.
Like I was always kind of cool with having just like a couple close friends, or doing my own thing. So like that kind of thought like never really even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Like in middle school, like I was pretty much just hanging out with my cousin, because middle school is probably the hard jump. When I got to high school, by that point, I had a couple buddies from baseball, and it was kind of all good from there.
Yep.
And then, like you said, I did go to a monster high school.
Yeah.
So for those of you that might not know, my high school at the time that I went there was the largest high school in America. We had 6,000 students. My graduating class was over 1,200 students.
Damn.
My senior year. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So it was monster. I mean, that's bigger than some colleges. I remember when I went to the U after that, I felt almost like I went to a smaller school after that. Obviously, it's much bigger. The U has like 15,000, but
Yeah.
like it still felt like a lot smaller after I went to college. And then actually a couple years later, when my brother was going to high school there, MTV picked up a show. They had a one-season show called The Paper. You can look this up. That featured Cypress Bay High School, my high school.
Shout out.
About our school newspaper. Yeah, so
I won't try and one up you,
mean,
but New Rochelle High School was on MTV too. We had a kid, Billy Archer,
oh, really?
who it was a TV show where he was a star football player but also an opera singer, and they followed
I remember
him around.
that was New Rochelle.
That was New Rochelle, yeah. So
Oh,
you're not
shoot.
winning me over with any MTV points.
Oh, yeah. All right.
But I'm curious your take on the state of Florida in general. Because the state of Florida takes a lot of heat. They take a lot of heat in the political world, because people always make a joke that like there could be a vote for the whole state gets an ice cream party, or everybody like has to work on Saturdays and Sunday, and they would still have a 50-50 vote on and be split on the decision. So there's that part of Florida politically. I know when I go down there, the drivers are not that great. They do not know how to use blinkers in Florida. People are sometimes seen as, not racist, but there's sometimes in some parts of Florida there's still Confederate flags flying. Like, so Florida is just a weird breed. What's your take? Because you've seen Florida, you've seen New York. What's your take on Florida as a state?
Yeah. So there's some crazy stuff with Florida. First of all, the farther south you go, the more north you're actually going in terms of people,
Okay.
right? So if you're in northern Florida, it's like southern culture, right?
Yep.
It's much more Georgia, Alabama kind of flavor, right?
Yep.
And then as you keep driving south, you start getting to the snowbirds, you get to the New York retirees,
Yep.
and then you get to the Latin flavor. So like it's almost like the farther you drive south, the more it's like you're driving north up 95,
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
So you got to kind of wrap your head around that to start. You know, I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, went to school in Miami. So for me, like I get kind of that half of the culture in that like it's first of all, it's heavy Latin. And I say that in like a great way because I loved growing up in that Latin environment.
Same.
The food was bomb.
The culture, people are just happier.
The culture, people are happy. But people speak Spanish, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be like cool with like being in a Spanish environment. And I think, you know, growing up in New York and you know, my dad's fluent with Spanish and stuff like that, working in the bakery and things
Yep.
like that. You know, granted, I was used to more of like the Puerto Rican flavor and not so much the Cuban flavor. But yeah, so like just you got to immerse yourself in the Latin aspect of it. You got to recognize like America's a melting pot, and like
Yeah.
if you can just like go in with both feet, like you can. Miami's a phenomenal place. I mean, the weather's great. People, you know, spring break down there. It's like always a party.
Yep.
It's a lot of flashy money, and you can spend cash so fast living
Yeah.
down there.
Yep.
And things are expensive, but like overall, like really great. And then you go north, and you get to like the middle band, like the Orlando, and it's just kind of like to me, that's kind of like a weird area because like things are really spread out. You got to drive like 1,000,000 miles to get to anything,
Yep.
and then you got Disney in the middle of that, and it's like you have people flying in from all over the world to go to this place. So like people don't know how to drive because a lot of them are renting cars and
That's
they
a
don't know
good
the roads
Mhm.
and things like that, right? And then you keep going farther north, and then you get up to, you know, Gainesville and Tallahassee and Jacksonville. And I spent a lot of time up there because I have buddies that went to obviously Florida, New York State. And
It starts getting a little weird up there.
It's like you're getting in the sticks, right? So like, you know, it's a different kind of, you know, pickup truck culture and things like that. And you got to, and like, you know, to survive there or to thrive there, you got to be able to shift gears out of that Miami mindset and like get into like country music and, you know, camo, and like you got to understand like that aspect of the culture and of American culture. And, you know, that's a whole different type of fun, right?
Yep.
So like, you know, playing baseball, I think kind of helped introduce me to that because, you know me, like when we were in New York, like I didn't want to, country music turned me off so much. Like I didn't want to think about it. And now I'm like a huge country fan because, you know, playing baseball in the South, you can't not listen to country.
Yep.
And you start understanding how people like that stuff.
And that was the first thing.
Go ahead.
That was the first thing that when I first came down, or maybe it was like the second time or something, when I started to really see you like embracing that Florida culture. And then you also lived in Tennessee for a little bit, so you get some, you know, some country credit there. But when you had told me that like you were fishing, you were listening to country music, you said give NASCAR a chance. To a New Yorker,
and you should. NASCAR's good, man.
I hear you, and if I got a ticket, I would give it a chance. But still, from the outside, I thought you were crazy because like any person from a big city, you know, in the north, just we don't like country, we don't like NASCAR, we don't like fishing, and to hear you say you were doing all those things really was like, wow, he's really embracing this Southern culture. So like. I guess I haven't given it that much of a chance. Country music is I'm sort of starting to come around on a little bit, just because like some of the songs I can get behind. But that being said, it's still fascinating to me that, you know, Florida being the big state that it is like there's such a different, you know, dynamic between people there from the north to the south.
Yeah.
And that's why it gets that label of just being a mess sometimes, because you've got so many different types of people, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. People there can't drive, you know, and when you go up to like New York, right? I remember when I went up to see my grandmother, I was like 17 years old, and like I took her car to go drive over to your house. And I was driving like on the Sprain and all. I don't even remember these things, right?
Yep.
And I just remember like between the potholes and like people just ripping it through these like, you know, parkways and stuff like that. I was like, damn, these people are crazy, but they're all crazy together, right? Like they're all like singing off the same song sheet. Whereas you
Yep.
get down in South Florida and you got like, old folks who drive real slow and
Yep.
can't see. And then you have people who are coming in from Venezuela and Colombia and Cuba, and they got their style of driving. And then you have like, young rich kids driving in their,
Yeah.
Infinities and
Yep.
Mercedes, and they can't drive, but they got these, big fancy cars.
Yep.
And then you got the pickup trucks. And then you have like Miami's a big port, so you got huge like tractor trailers on the road. It's just wild, man. It's just a wild situation. When you think about it that way, it's like, yeah, of course it's going to be a disaster to drive down there.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And staying in Florida, you went to school at the University of Miami, which is far different from where I went to school. I went to school in upstate New York, SUNY
Yeah.
Cortland, which was freezing cold. It was a smaller school, about 9,000, 10,000 kids. So I was always fascinated by people that went to a big school. So University of Miami, my nephew Michael, who I spoke to, goes to University of Alabama.
Mm.
I never like understood that whole college lifestyle. And to me, if I had my choice, and obviously money is a big factor in any college decision, you were fortunate to live in Florida. So, in-school tuition was probably cheaper for you than it would be for me coming from New York. So I stayed in New York and went to Cortland. My brother and sister went to Binghamton. But I could never understand, and I'm still fascinated how, college basketball players will make a decision to go to Syracuse University in like upstate New York, freezing cold, over somewhere like a University of Miami, which is just sun all day long. I'm sure there's women walking around in nicer outfits than they do at SUNY Cortland. But what was your college experience like? Because to me, it's in the middle of Miami. It's beautiful weather all the time. There's beaches around you. How do you focus on school when there's just so much other things to do in Miami? Obviously you're a good student, but like I can imagine some kids just going down there and falling off the map because they're just like enamored by everything that's going on around them.
No, a lot do. I mean, Miami. I mean, their graduation rate has gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we used to be suntan U back in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
It used to be that people used to just go there, they get a tan, and there's a ton of people tanning on campus. Like there's like all year round, there's people in like bikinis and like board shorts just hanging out. They have a textbook to try to pretend they're studying, but they're just laying out getting some sun, right?
No shot.
Let's be honest here. To me, going to school in Miami is kind of no different than like if you were to go to like Fordham or like NYU or something like that.
Really?
Like it's the same level of distractions and like, nonsense you can get into, right? It's no different in that sense, albeit like the pace of life and stuff is a little bit different, right? Miami's kind of low key. People go out to the beach. It's like that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, I have plenty of engineering textbooks that are like have sand still in the creases of it because like again like I take it out to the beach and pretend I'm going to do some studying and like whether or not that actually happened I don't actually know, but so like Miami wasn't that big of a school though. Like a lot of people have this thing that like Miami's a big school because we're a big football school, right? Like we're like we've been recently back in the top 10 here and there.
Yeah.
But like obviously like we have a lot of icons that went to the U.
Mm-hmm.
We got that whole swagger, all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
which
lot of history.
I'm proud of and I love, right? I love that.
Yeah.
But we only got like 15,000 students, which, in the grand scheme of things, Alabama, where your cousin goes, like they have like 75,000 students.
Really? I
crazy,
didn't even know
right?
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got huge amounts. Florida State, huge amounts of people. So we're actually a little bit of a smaller school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, it's probably closer like, what Fordham and those schools up in New York where, you got the club, you got stuff to do all around.
That's true.
People still make it out of there, no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a different mindset, right? Because that Northeast mindset of like, go to school, work hard, this and that, right, is a little different than kind of the South Florida mindset of like
laid back,
flash some cash, laid back, go to the beach.
And that's why it's interesting to me because I know like health reasons for old people. They say if they live in New York, and that's what you said, like a lot of snowbirds. There's a lot of old, grandmothers, grandfathers that move down to Florida because I think there's health studies that show if you're in warmer weather, it's better for your health and this and that. I wonder if that some way can factor into schooling as well. If like, kids are better students in Florida because they are in that nice weather. They're more happy. Whereas in upstate New York, it's cold, it's snowy. You know, maybe your brain doesn't work as well as if it was in like warm. I know when it's nice summertime here, I'm way more encouraged to go to the gym. I'm way more encouraged to be outside and do more like athletic cardio type of events. Where when I was in Cortland, there'd be so many days where it was just snowstorm after snowstorm where I'm like, F this. I don't want to go to class. I don't want to study. It's so cold outside. My house is cold. Like, whereas Miami, you don't have that. It's just like I could go to the beach and study. So it's like, I wonder if they were to do a test on like state by state who is like smarter schooling wise, if Florida would be a better, you know.
I don't know. That's hard to say because, like, obviously you'd have to factor out. You're going to see me be a nerd for a minute here and be an engineer.
That's what people want.
But you have to factor out the fact that you got, you know, Yale, MIT, all these schools in the Northeast, and you know. So what will be interesting is you look at like Stanford, right? California, right? I mean, granted, San Francisco's not great weather. I mean, people like to think San Francisco's a great town.
Cold.
I don't think it's that great. It's kind of cold.
A lot of homeless people.
It's just a lot of homeless people. So yeah, I think that'd be an interesting study. I mean, I think that there's also a lot of studies out there about how like having changes in seasons is actually really good for your like psyche, right? So that's something that Miami, like, we don't really have the change in seasons. We don't get the snow. We don't get, you know,
Fall,
leaves kind of change, but we have palm trees and stuff. It's kind of different, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, as you know, I've been living in DC prior to moving to Australia for the past like 7 years, 7 years. And like, I love coming back to the North. Like, you know, my parents, a lot of my best friends are still down in South Florida. So like, I love going down there and spending as much time as I can down there. But I love DC, man. I love, you know, having the change in seasons. Like, I didn't realize how much I actually appreciated that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, being back in a city, being back in that Northeast, being at, you know, what's now unfortunately the political capital of the world, right? So like, you know, I think sunlight is always good, right? But I think that having changes in seasons, there's probably something to that too. I bet you there's a ton of research on this.
Yeah, sure.
But if schooling in the South was like, if students were to be that much more successful, I feel like there'd be like better or more schools like down in the South.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Staying in school a little bit, can you speak to, because something I was always fascinated with you was that you're extremely bright. You're a very, very smart guy.
Nah,
I always got to throw a compliment into my guest a little bit to make him, you know, feel good a little bit. No, but something I always respected about you is you're very, very intelligent. Can you talk about what you studied in school a little bit? Was it engineering?
Yeah. So I've taken way more credits in school than I'm proud to really talk about. But so down at the U, I did a bachelor's and a master's degree in mechanical engineering.
Oof.
So I studied predominantly like combustion engines and things like that. I thought I was going to work in the auto industry. And
specifically, what in the auto industry is that? Because
like I thought I was going to go work for. Yeah. So like internal combustion engine, right? That's the engine in your car, right?
Okay.
I mean, now they're moving to electric engines, but so I thought I was going to work in the auto industry, like designing engines and stuff for like Ford or like go work for Ferrari or something cool like that, right? Yeah. And through a number of circumstances, that ended up not coming to fruition. And then I got picked up by my current company. So I work now in the construction industry, which is someplace I never thought I'd work, building what I like to say is the biggest, baddest stuff on the planet. So I started off working in power plants, building nuclear power plants, stuff like that.
Yeah, at one point,
and then,
didn't you say you were technically like a rocket scientist? Or something? No, not a rocket scientist, but there was one phrase that like no one ever is that.
I mean, I'm a scientist.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm a scientist, but that's about the extent of it.
Okay. So, all right.
Anyway, yeah, so after that, so while I was working, I went back to school and did the MBA thing. And I did that part-time while I was working.
Yeah, that was impressed by that.
Degree number 3.
You used to drive back and forth from Washington to New York, right?
No, I took the Greyhound.
Oh shit! We could get into the Greyhound.
That's a whole nother thing. I was on a Greyhound every weekend for 2.5 years.
I take my hat off to you for that because I took the Greyhound once in Virginia. It's from Charlottesville to like somewhere in North Carolina. I was sitting, no joke, next to guys who had just gotten out of prison. I had a crazy guy in front of me who was laying on the floor because our bus was delayed. So any shout out to anyone who has ever taken a Greyhound, because you've really lived your life and you hopefully are a better person because of it.
You want to hear something funny? I actually have I'm like a gold member at Greyhound. I'm not kidding you. I was getting like free trips, free discounts, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, man. I was like platinum status on Greyhound.
I give you a lot. Did every Greyhound bus, and I don't want to put too much. I don't want to crap on the Greyhound service too much, because I give them a lot of credit that they still drive from these, states to states and do these. They got bus drivers that drive overnight, but those buses used to smell like piss. There would be just weird cross-dressers on them. Just the most random stuff you could ever imagine. Like a clown or something, they'd be on a Greyhound. And so I'm sure you've seen some stuff on Greyhound.
Oh, my God. I've seen some stuff, man. I mean, everything from a dude sitting in his seat with his umbrella open to this. Because I used to take the 2 a.m. Greyhound out of DC to get into New York at 6 a.m. before my 9 a.m. class.
Wow.
And the people on that 2 a.m. bus, man, oh, my God. Just this one woman, I'll never forget her. She gets on and she's got like a purse, and coming out of the purse is like one of those old school handsets for a phone with the curly thing. And it's going into her purse. And she's just having this squirrely conversation.
Oh, man.
And I mean, this woman did not, it's not like that was a hipster with who has a connection to the cell phone. No. This was just a crazy person.
Just random cordless phone from someone's house.
I'm like, damn. So I'm going to be locked in this vessel with this person for the next 4.5 hours.
Oh, see, that's why I like talking. That's why, and this sounds cheesy, but this is the reason why I wanted to do chats with, my friends, because stuff you listen to on the internet or with these celebrities is they've never ridden on a Greyhound, and if they did, it's a story from 40 years ago that they're probably making up. You rode a Greyhound every weekend going to New York at 2 a.m, which I have so much I have so much respect for you doing that, because I've done that also and I know what that's like. So hearing that story just must resonate with so many people. So like I said, my hat's off to you. But continue on with your schooling, because I'm still fascinated. About the engineering life.
I went and did the MBA thing in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Great experience. Met a whole new crop of some of my best friends. So that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The downside, I lost my hair. So as you know, I've been shaving my head now for a couple of years.
It just went to a different part of your face. So that's
exactly. I had to put it down here. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this beard, having an MBA in the construction industry, you talk to a construction worker, they don't give a rat's ass about that, right? But you walk in with a beard like this and people are like, oh, this guy,
you get a little bit of respect. Yeah, no, there's a little bit of respect. There's 100%, there's street cred, I guess, in the hood community, where if you've 50 Cent, he's been shot 9 times. So he could walk with a little bit more swagger than some other people into a hood. Hipsters, construction men, garbage man, if you've got a nice grungy beard, even in barbers, you get a little bit more respect. If you've got some swagger wearing, some basketball shorts and a jersey, you're in the athlete world. So yes, having that beard for you, which a lot of people cannot grow a beard like that, I'm sure you get a lot more respect when when you see face to face someone in the construction field working.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I've had this thing for a couple of years now. It is it's a pain, I'll be honest with you. I gotta oil this thing up and
there's an art to
blow
it.
Dry it and stuff. It's a whole thing, man. Never thought I'd be that guy.
Mm-hmm. Maybe there'll be an shaving engineer, my head. What is it? A profession or career that you could study in college just for bearding.
Bearding, yeah. And then shaving my head. What's crazy to me is that those Mach 3 razor heads, those things are so expensive.
Yeah.
And I have to shave my head every 36 hours, every day and a half. I got to shave. I'm gonna shave it this afternoon.
Really?
Stubble started to come in. I go through so many razor heads that it's actually just as expensive as when I used to get haircuts. Yeah, because I'm just plowing through those razor heads.
Yeah, I feel like that
crazy.
That always will balance itself out somewhere. So I think about that with my contacts that I wear. So I don't want to get LASIK surgery. I've spoken to a couple of friends of mine who are actual eye doctors, and they said we just don't know the what the causes of it are going to be in the future. So like it's a little dangerous to maybe get it. But I always think about I'm going to have to buy contacts for the rest of my life, which is just like they're expensive. So like either they got to come out with some type of option, and I'm sure they have technology to do this. You could probably speak to it a little better, but like there has to be a contact they can make that is just like you have one set of them and you can wear them forever. Like as I'm sure maybe you know about batteries better than I do, but I've always had a theory about batteries that they can make a battery that just runs forever. Like is there like why do my AA batteries run out in 2 weeks? Can't they what's the Energizer? Can't they make a battery that just runs forever? But they don't want to do that because we're gonna have to keep buying batteries so they stay in business.
No, okay. There's a whole lot of things that you just said.
I want to break into your I want to break into your brain a little bit.
Yeah, and I haven't done some engineering in a while, so no one quote me on this. Don't go put this in your homework assignment. But so on the contact side, I feel like I don't wear contacts. Mm-hmm. I think I'm probably gonna have to start wearing them soon because I've been staring at computer screens now for so many years that like my eyes are going on me. Yeah. But don't they have like the ones that are not not the throwaway ones that like you kind of wear all the time, but you got to like be good about taking them out and like keeping them clean and stuff? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, I think they have monthly ones, but like you're still gonna have to buy them for the rest of your life. Like there's nothing that's.
I thought there was ones that were like they last like more or less forever, but like and then like those like are no longer popular. People like the throwaway ones now. It's like the whole thing now.
If they do have them, you still got to buy solution for them. Like there's still like
there's still other stuff for it, right?
You're always in the mercy of like these companies' hands because if it's not one thing, it's another thing that you got to purchase, and it's just like you're always in debt to these freaking big companies buying crap, which like. For you with the razors, I used to see commercials on TV. Like, isn't there like some razor club or like there's some razor?
Yeah, Shave Club.
Dollar Shave Club, but they also have this one razor that is supposed to just live on forever that you can always use.
Yeah. Those things don't work though.
No,
they
don't
work.
All scams.
No, I mean they're not scams. It's just you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Right.
But
like if there really was a better mousetrap, like the whole world would just shift to it.
Yeah.
So like. And that's kind of like the jaded business person in me.
Yeah.
And that's why I think these companies can make.
Well, that's why I think these companies can do it. Like, I'm sure they can make a razor that just doesn't ever get dull. Like, they must have had it back in the day when cavemen were shaving their big beards. What did they do?
They just grew it out until it stopped growing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because your hair slows down growing as it gets longer.
True. Have you ever?
There's like an almost permanent length to a beard or hair or whatever.
You're pretty. Like, I mean, you're like you said, you're a confident guy. When you went to your new school, it never really fazed you about being the new kid or something like that. And I'll be real with you. I get nervous about losing my hair. So like I take. It says reconnecting. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. We could keep rolling. So
right.
I get nervous about losing my hair, and honestly, like it's thinning in the front, and I don't know what. So do you? I take Propecia because I don't want to.
Yeah, right.
I get that's just me, and I'm not a confident guy. I'm very self-conscious sometimes. But what was my point of thought on that?
Shaving my head?
Not shaving your head. Because I see, like, Brian Urlacher did, like, the whole hair transplant thing or stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
I would have to do that stuff just because, like, to me. But do you really think when you used to travel from Washington to New York, like, and that stress with schooling, do you think that that contributed to your hair loss?
10,000%.
Really?
10,000%. Yeah, I mean, if like if you go back to like like Emma, my wife, she pulls up pictures all the time of like right when I was getting near graduation,
Hmm.
and like I no lie, looked like a cancer patient.
Really?
Yeah, like between working, 40, 45 hours a week
Hmm.
at work and then doing like almost a full-time clip at school, like it was like legit, like really rough.
Yeah.
Like I did the math one point and like, I was sitting all day at work,
Hmm.
right? So that was like 9 hour day at work and then, an hour commute. So that's like 10 hours a day sitting,
Yeah.
like you have to sit more or less.
Yeah.
And then I had all day Saturday and some Sundays where I was sitting in class. So that's have to sit, right?
Yeah.
And then I had the bus rides where like, you know, I had the evening bus ride where I was sleeping in a sitting position,
Hmm.
and then the bus ride home where I was, again, sitting for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And like all that sitting and like, I was still trying to hit the gym and stuff like that, but like eventually you just start the lack of sleep and the lack of quality of sleep, like all that just hair man would start going.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, you see a lot of these people like that are just stressful, working their ass off on Wall Street, like doing these stock stuff and banking. And it's a lot of
Yeah.
them. I've got tons of friends from high school that like I say about you, you're very confident, which you pull it off fine. So, but there's a lot of people that I've gone to high school with that work down on Wall Street or down in the business area in New York, that their hair is thinning and their hair is starting to go, and almost just like let it go, because it's just like, but they'll tell you that
That's a hard decision. No, that's
Yeah,
a
it
hard
is.
decision, man. Like I had, like if you talk to my buddy Dustin, like he used to rip on me all the time when I had like a bald spot right here.
Yep.
I was trying to like, cover it up and like do this whole thing.
Mhm.
And then, I just remember like at a certain point, I told my wife, I was like, look, like she was my girlfriend at the time, but I was like, look, I'm gonna start like cropping it down, and then I'm just gonna bick it.
Mhm.
And she was like, yeah, let's do it. Like she was like, whatever, like
Yeah,
it's all
she's
good.
cool, people.
And so I started doing that, and like, because I didn't want to like just walk in the next day at work like boom, bicked head. Like I thought that'd be like a shock.
Yep.
So I like over the course of like 3 months, like started getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And those 3 months were like the most awkward 3 months from like a hairstyle perspective. Like it was like Emma tells me now all the time. She's like, yeah, you should have just done it, just ripped it off. Like it would have been one day shock at work, and then like people would have been over it.
Yeah.
Instead, it had this like really awkward like
In
short
between phase, yeah.
In between phase. It was real bad, real bad.
I've seen that when I've gone to get haircuts, that I guess people that do hair transplants or do the surgery, I guess there's a phase in between where it's like you need your hair to be like, it's like growing back but not growing back, and it's a weird phase. So it's either like
It's a weird phase.
It's either like if I ever get to that point, it's either going to be all off or I'll wear a freaking wig. I don't care. But but switching topics on that. So from Florida, and something I got to give you a lot of credit for in Florida. You lived in Miami, Brickell area, which is very expensive, and something that you were very savvy about was always being super conscious of, I don't know if I don't know your bank account, but like you were always very savvy to, sales restaurants were having or like good deals they were having. So you were the king of like, because I've been down to Brickell, I've been down
I'm
to
a Jew
Miami.
from New York. What do you want from my life?
So I give you a lot of credit because that is one expensive place, but you managed to make it work in a great way. You lived above a place called Gordon Beers or whatever.
It's my spot, yeah.
It was a microbrewery inside of their restaurant, and you always knew these Italian restaurants to eat food. So from that, you moved to DC, but all throughout this, you managed to still always be very health conscious, work out. I know I've got buddies of mine, my friend Little Bronx, who hopefully will be on the chat one day, reached out to you and asked you workout plans. And
Yeah.
why was working out and fitness always so important to you? And I know you played a little baseball at University of Miami,
Yeah, sort of.
like
Yeah.
their spring ball or something. But you had buddies who played on the team that, I'm sure you've got workout plans from. But how did fitness become so important to you? And when you even moved from Florida to Tennessee to Washington, you maintained that, that workout mentality.
Yeah, so I think Miami had a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
Now that I've been thinking back to it. So one, when I stopped playing baseball and stopped having like pitching as an outlet, like I needed some way to like, I mean, I'm a pretty chill guy, but like we all have some frustrations and stuff. So for me, like the gym became like an easy place to have like an outlet for frustration, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just kind of like, compete with yourself. I definitely train better when I got like a buddy to like train with, so you compete with them.
Yep.
So like when I stopped playing baseball, like the gym was just like a natural place for me to like continue to try to compete. There's that aspect of it. There's like I always say like if I wasn't an engineer, I'd probably be like a doctor. It's like I'm always kind of fascinated with like anatomy and physiology. So again, like the gym is a place to like better hone those aspects of like of your life. And then the last piece is like honestly, Miami's like it's a beach culture, right? So like you're not wearing a shirt like all the time.
Yep.
So to some extent, like that, that Jersey Shore mentality of like gym tan laundry, right? That like played out in Miami. So like that definitely had some role in me, like, prioritizing the gym to some extent, at least in those like, just after college years.
Yep. And was that totally different from DC? Like that, like, did you see a difference in the gym from DC to from Florida?
DC actually is like one of the more like healthy cities.
Oh, really?
Like it always ranks up pretty high as like being pretty health conscious.
Huh. I would think the opposite.
You would think so too, but you know what it is that we have like a public transport, like metro and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But like the stops are kind of far apart. Like they're just far enough that you walk it. Like any farther and you'd be inclined to drive it, and any closer you wouldn't really be walking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like facilitates a more like active lifestyle in DC. And then like that coupled with like, we're in this whole like health trend and this and that.
Yeah.
DC is like just pretty healthy. So like, I have some gym rat buddies in DC. I mean, one of my, best mates, to use some Australian slang in there, one of my best mates, he, I met him at the gym in DC
mm-hmm.
and like, so I think now like that gym culture is kind of permeated to a lot of other spots. Albeit like, in Miami for the most part, it's like people are hitting like, chest, buys and tries, right?
Yep.
And DC is a little bit more balanced in that regard.
Yeah, of course.
You can only take your shirt off for like 2 months out of the year.
Yeah. I've got a question about DC, and more so in like the political sense of things. How much did like the politics of actual Washington D.C., Congress, like that whole world bleed into just everyday life? Like, were there protests going on, or were there rallies in the street, or congressional hearing stuff that you had to drive around, or the president was in town so you couldn't drive down the street?
Yep.
How much did that like bleed into your lifestyle?
All the time, honestly.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so DC is a really friendly place because like it's really political, so everybody wants to know who you are.
Yeah.
Whereas like growing up in New York, it's like I think I went like years and never knew my neighbor kind of thing, right?
Yep.
So here, like everybody's interested in like who you are, what do you do, that kind of thing, right? So it's really friendly. So that's like one social aspect. Like you run into arcades and closures all the time.
Yep.
Over the past couple of years with like Trump and this and that, like there's protests like every week.
I'm
there's
sure.
protests.
Mm-hmm.
And like I remember like the women's march and stuff, like all the buses parked like right across the street from my house. Like, where I live like close to like the old Redskins Stadium where like the Nats used to play, and where like DC United plays, the RFK Stadium. So they have all this parking lot. So like anytime there's a big rally, like all the buses park there, and we're like 20 blocks from the Capitol. So like people just like waves of people walking by. So you got that. I mean, I kind of like it. It's there's never been any like violence issues. It's just like a lot of people. And then the other thing is that DC is other than like maybe a small part of like Capitol Hill, like it's pretty diverse. There's a lot of black people.
Yep.
And it's a more like democratic. It votes Democratic.
Yeah. So
like it's been really interesting. Like when I moved there, Obama was president, and you had this like obviously a lot of Democrats around, and then when it shifted and Trump won, and like the Republicans kind of came more into power, like the shift in the city was wild.
Yeah.
Like just like the tone of like the bar scene, everything was just so different.
Different
and that's what
in
I think
what
is really
sense?
interesting. Like DC is a transient city. It was just like a whole new crop of people were there, because that's the thing. Like so much of the city is based on who's in politics, because like the consultants that are going to be working there, and like all like the staffers, all this and that. So like basically like every 2 to 4 years, if there's like a change in government, all these people move out and all these new people move in.
Yeah.
So you have people like rediscovering the city, or like you have people who now have like a lot more, certain consultants have a lot more money. And it's just like, you see like huge shifts in the city after every election. So like we definitely feel it as residents who are like permanent residents. I got a house there and stuff like that. So like, we're not fixing to leave, and it's just really interesting to kind of see
that
these
dynamic,
big
that
shifts.
switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's something that I never really spent too much time in DC, but I was always fascinated on like what type of, people were, like, did you meet a lot of people like when you and your wife or girlfriend at the time, maybe like going out? Did you meet a lot of young people that worked within the government that did a lot of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. Like for a while there, like we had met some like through friends of friends, like we were going to like happy hours at the UK embassy.
Oh, wow.
Like England's embassy. They would have these like awesome like Friday parties or like, just kind of like let your hair down kind of thing. And it was just like really cool to be like at an embassy, like hanging out with all these like Brits and like friends of Brits, having some drinks. So like, there's a little bit of that. There's like, we'd go to like the like Congress, and like all these different like groups would have like talks and things like that. So I'd go and like sit in and like hear about, energy policy and things like that, and like listen to Secretary Ernest Muniz, who was the Department of Energy secretary at the time, like give talks and things like that. So you get like a lot of access. It's like easy to go to those things because they're open to the public for the most part, or like you just have to register beforehand, but they're free.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So like that was always pretty kind of cool too.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, like for me, when like an All-Star game will come to my town or something like that, you'll see all like WrestleMania now is in New York, so now there's all these like little mini, almost satellite wrestling events that lead up to WrestleMania. So it's like maybe a Saturday night low key wrestling event at some little town hall or something like that, which you get that every night in DC. So someone like you who's interested in engineering, there's the head of the engineering committee or something is doing a talk, like you're in that All-Star game forever, so it's like there's always events going on. So
exactly. But it's like super, like that's the thing though, is like when you have it all the time, like it's easy to like blink and realize like, wow, I haven't done anything in the past like 2 years, like haven't gone to anything.
Well, that's
it's like always on.
That's like when you live in New York, if you ask anybody, they'll say, I've never been to the Empire State Building, I've never been to the Statue of Liberty. Or in Chicago, they're like, oh, you must go down to Navy Pier every weekend and ride the the big what's that thing called, Ferris wheel. It's just like all these staples. Like people in San Francisco, they probably don't go to the Golden Gate Bridge. You ask anyone who lives in Las Vegas, they don't go down to the Strip because it's too busy. So like a lot of the times when you think someone who lives in that city is taking advantage of everything it has to offer, they're usually not. But like it's good to hear that you took advantage of it a little bit, which I'll transition into your next move, which brings us up to date right now, which is why I'm talking to you into the future, and hopefully I could get some sports picks out of you before this podcast is over. But you moved to Australia, which to anybody is like, I mean, Australia to me is, I've always just, my father has been there, but I've always just like, it's just a different world to me. Like it's what is it, 24-hour flight?
24 hours of flying,
24 hours of flying. And it's somewhere I want to go. It's somewhere I've always just like, I've been to Outback Steakhouse and I've seen pictures on the wall, and I've always had the impression that they drink Foster's there, but that got shot down. I heard they don't. So talk about a decision, a big decision in your career, in your life with your wife, to make a decision to move to the other side of the world.
Yeah. So it was not easy, obviously. Emma and I, my wife, we had always talked about like, okay, we want to live abroad somewhere because like you only get one shot at life. Like, let's go. I mean, you yourself kind of same kind of mentality, right? You moved to Chicago. Yeah. You guys talked about like going out towards San Diego and this and that. Like, and like good on you for like actually like picking up your roots and doing it, right? Yep. Like, like I don't care if you're moving down the block or moving across the world. Like, it's not an easy action to do. It takes some stones to go pick up roots and go move. So,
100%. Even moving out of your house is a big deal.
Oh, for sure. So So like in that regard, it was that kind of decision. We, at the time I was trying to like angle to try to get either to London or get to Sydney here in Australia.
And Canada was on the table too at one point, right?
Canada almost happened. Dallas almost happened. Obviously Dallas and Canada are a little less sexy in that, like, you're still in North America.
Yeah.
So when this opportunity,
no disrespect to Canada,
Sydney, yeah, no disrespect, love Canada, good people, good times, cold but good times. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the opportunity came to move to Sydney, and my wife and I had already talked about it, like, we're down, like we're gonna do it. I said yes, and then it was like, okay, start the paperwork. So we started doing the visas and all this and that. But then it kind of like when we started the visa process, and like I actually had like a date for a flight and all that kind of stuff. We're like, oh man, like, this is like real. And we had been talking about like, all right, how do, like, because there's a whole bunch of stuff you start realizing you got to think about, like, we have a dog, right?
Yep.
It's like, how are we going to get are we taking the dog? How are we going to get him to Australia? And you look it up, and it's like, oh, there's a 6-month waiting period from the time you start the paperwork before he's even allowed to fly.
Insane.
And then, oh, by the way, it costs like $5,000 to do this whole process.
So wait, speak to that, because we just did a Molly's Mind on pets, and I had the take on, I'd never grown up with pets. In Rockledge Road, we were not allowed to have dogs. You still with me? You there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll just have Molly.
Let's jump back. Molly's Mind, talking about pets.
Yep. So in the most recent Molly's Mind, we spoke about pets, and I was under, the side of, we never grew up with pets. Me and you, we grew up in Rockledge. We weren't allowed to have dogs. Yeah. And now I see, your wife's Instagram of the whole story of how to bring a dog to Australia. So like, what were some of like there's like some rule or there's regulations on you can't bring a dog from the US to Australia?
I mean, it's like, so the whole thing is like Australia being an island, right? They don't have rabies or anything like that out here. So they're like really protective about bringing animals in from other countries. They want to make sure that, like, the natural habitat and stuff like that doesn't get disrupted. In fact, when you fly over here, like, you get a hardcore message from like the Department of Agriculture from Australia about like, you can't bring these things in, and if you did, like, just declare it, like, you're not going to get in trouble, like, but we need to know about it. And like it's like, I remember the first time I was flying in and watching that video, I was like, oh shoot, like, is there like dirt on my sneakers, and like I didn't clean this. I had my golf clubs, like, shoot, did I clean those?
You see that on a smaller scale too when you go to like Dominican Republic or something like that, just for a little trip. Those forms you fill out, that's just like, are you traveling with any live cattle, or how much money do you have? And like, for that type of trip, you always just no. But if you're moving like permanently and you do have a pet or something like that, like, most of the time some of the answers to those questions might be yes, like, we do have livestock, or I do have this amount of money, because like you're traveling with your bank account. So like,
exactly. So that was definitely crazy. So anyway, so it takes 6 months, like, from the time you start the paperwork to the time the dog is even allowed to travel.
So did it ever cross your mind, I don't know if this conversation came up, and your dog will never hear you, but did it ever cross your mind to leave your dog in Washington? Because it was
the dog might not hear me, but Emma's going to hear this.
Okay.
No, I mean, the way we put it was like, look, like, let's start the paperwork, because the paperwork part is not the expensive part. It's the flight. And it's like, look, like, when the time comes to actually get them on an airplane, we'll see. Like, if it's looking like my company's going to like turn around and send me somewhere else, then like, we don't want to spend the money. But if it's like, oh, like, this is going well, the project's going well, everybody wants to keep me here, then like, we set aside the money. We're going to do this. Like, the plan was to do it. It would have to be something crazy to make us not do it. Right?
Yep, that makes sense.
And that crazy thing almost happened, because like, it turned out that
I followed along, man.
The month that we were trying to fly him out here, the U.S. changed their, like, the U.S. airlines just all abruptly said, oh, we're no longer going to take the extra large crates for domestic flights.
Ay.
So that meant like we had to, shove our dog in the large crate, which, to be fair, like, it turns out that's the size crate he sleeps in every day at our house.
Yeah.
We didn't know that his crate was too small, but they could turn him down. Like when you go to the airport, they could be like, nah, he's too big.
That's
like he
insane.
can't fit in that. It's not safe.
And you're communicating with people here stateside in the U.S., right? So like the whole time change and all that stuff must have been crazy
Oh my
too,
God,
right?
dude. It was nuts, man. And like, international calling and all this and that.
Yeah.
And it was rough, man. It was,
Well, back to your original point. Imagine trying to do this before the internet or before, like,
possible.
How did people do stuff back then? Like, I'm sure people tried to bring dogs to Australia back before in the 80s or something. Like, while there were flights, but there was no internet. There was cell phone, like a phone call must have been $1 billion.
Exactly. I don't know. Maybe you like send a letter and like it takes like a year and a half. Man. I don't know how you do that. I have no idea.
Maybe that's why a lot of these dogs are depressed now, because their parents had to put up like all this freaking. They had to be the scapegoat for all these dogs traveling to Australia. But fast forward from the dog, because that must have just been a nightmare.
It was crazy stressful. Stressful. I mean, we ended up having to switch. Emma's like we were flying back to the States while Remy, our dog, was gonna be flying over here. Mm-hmm. Because we had to go to a wedding and all this other stuff, and then we came back and we were going to pick him up down here, and we had to move my wife Emma's flight up so she could fly back to the States to help deal with some of this administrative stuff. Because like we were all stressed out, like the time zones were killing us, and we were like, look, like Emma, like you should just get on a plane and go.
Yeah.
So she literally like we changed her flight and she flew out the next morning, and like boom, she was gone, and like 24 hours of flight later. She lands and it's like, oh, he still hasn't gotten on a plane to California yet. And like, oh man, it was wild. But he's here. He's happy.
Yep. It was a happy ending to that story.
Happy ending. Yeah, he made it successfully. It was a good time. And it's I forgot how big he was. I'll tell you that much. So he's 95 pounds.
Wow.
Black Lab Shepherd mix, pretty tall dog. And like, we're in a 2-bedroom house. Like it's a nice house and stuff like that. But man, I forgot how much room he takes up, because like this house has some narrow hallways, and it's like he comes like Brian Urlacher coming down the hallway, take out your knees.
So what's the overall vibe of Australia? Because all I've ever known, all I've ever heard from people vacationing there is that it's just amazing. There's it's just a great time. Everybody's happy. It's beautiful. What's been your overall take of Australia?
All that stuff.
Honestly.
It's I think like there's a running joke that like the country of Australia, and like the entire, if you take like Oceania, like the whole country, like it's like the Texas of the UK, like in totality. Okay. But then like Sydney is like much more like cosmopolitan, metropolitan, right? It's like super friendly. It's gorgeous. The weather's fantastic.
What was your first interaction with a kangaroo?
So I actually didn't get an interaction with a kangaroo until we went up to like a koala and kangaroo sanctuary.
Okay, so they're not just walking around the streets saying hi to people.
Not in Sydney, but like if you like drive out of the city and stuff, like a couple hours, like they're hopping. It's like deer. They're like deer.
Really?
Like the same way you have deer in like you don't see deer walking up and down the streets of Manhattan, but like if you go to like
Upstate
Westchester or whatever. Like you're gonna see some deer, and if you go upstate, you're gonna see them everywhere, right?
That's nuts.
It's the same kind of thing here, right? Same thing with like spiders, right? There's not crazy spiders in like downtown Sydney, but like as you start to branch out, you start getting bigger and bigger and bigger spiders.
So spiders are, what's the word? Synonymous, I guess. Are they're known to Australia? Like big spiders? Is that a thing?
Oh, dude, yeah, that's a thing.
Okay. I don't know if I can make it.
Crazy big. Yeah, I mean, there's spiders the size of like dinner plates here.
No way.
Like no lie. Yeah, like we've seen them. They are that big.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
So I'm sure the animals are beautiful and all that stuff. What's the Australian take on Donald Trump?
Oh man, just constant mockery.
Really?
Like at all times. Yeah. So there's shows on on the local stations, stuff like that, just on American politics. And they have like all these like caricatures of him, and it's like, what did he say this time, and all that kind of things. But honestly, Australian politics are just as much of a disaster.
Really?
So they're on like their third or fourth prime minister in like 3 years. And like, I don't know how their government works, but like from what I understand, like it's just been like total like chaos for the past couple of years.
It's surprising because like that happens in a lot more places than you'd expect. I mean, like I've only been to It happened in Colombia when I was there, and granted, these are like, countries that aren't the wealthiest countries, but like Colombia, their politics are, you talk to people there and they've got stories on both sides of it. Oh, this guy is cheating on his wife, or this guy's doing this and that. And we have that happening in our country, but like a lot of countries, the politics are not as good as you think they are. Like Canada's great, but I'm sure if you go there's people all on both sides that think this or that of the guy Justin Trudeau or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But how are you treated how are you treated and looked as an American over there?
Oh, good. I mean, the Aussies are so friendly that like I don't know that there's like not bad blood between them and anybody. And this is me probably being ignorant, but like they seem to be just friendly with everybody that comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, we always joke around about how like because Australia is actually still part of the Commonwealth of the United Kingdom.
Oh, I don't even. Wow.
So like they don't even have like we have like July 4th Independence Day.
Yeah.
They don't have Independence Day because they're not technically independent.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they're like a separate sovereign country.
Yeah.
But they celebrate Australia Day, which is just like, hey, we're a country. It's not like, hey, we're actually independent from the British.
Yeah.
And like people joke about how like it's just so that they can participate in what's called a Commonwealth Games, where it's like a competition between England and Wales and like India and Australia for like cricket and rugby and all these sports, like this big like sporting competition.
Yeah. So how is the like their rugby out there is like NFL like bigger?
Yeah.
It's
not bigger. I mean, it's because there's actually like two types of rugby. There's rugby league and rugby union. And
I know the black.
Sure people in the States.
There's the black something, right?
Yeah, the All Blacks.
All
That's
Blacks.
the New Zealand national team.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sure someone in your comments can like correct me, but there's like slightly different rules between the two.
Maybe yeah.
But the sport I'm in love with out here is Australian rules football or footy. This sport is awesome. It's like a combination of like basketball, soccer, and like rugby/football.
And it's a professional sport or a
professional
hobby?
Sport. Yeah, they play 22-week season, just like the NFL, 2 bye weeks.
Wow.
And then they have like a premier championship. It's like a big deal.
Huh. Well, I mean, like it doesn't surprise me because I mean it's just like it's a different part of the world. So like I said, they're doing totally different things over there than we do here. So like hearing that there's some other different sport, it's always fascinated. It's always like blown my mind because I think about this on a larger scale of just planet Earth. Is like there's probably another universe somewhere where people are playing some crazy sport, like so it's like it doesn't surprise me that there's some different crazy sport that they're playing in Australia, because even if you go upstate New York from downstate, they're playing like these crazy can jam games where they're throwing a frisbee through a garbage, where if you ask someone in New York City, they don't know what the hell it is. So it's like it's cool to hear that there's other stuff that goes on outside of just the world, the city that you're in.
But this is like pro sports where they're getting paid like $300,000 a year.
Yeah,
like this is like legit stuff, right? It's not like it's not like playing like that Quidditch nonsense or whatever, the Harry Potter stuff. That's like a semi-pro league around that.
Well, people are always fascinated when they see this stuff in the Olympics, like in Canada where they do that sport where you roll the ice.
Yeah, curling.
Yeah, and it's just like people who have never been outside of their bubble don't know that this stuff goes on. So it's like they see it in the Olympics and they're like, what? Why is there this weird sport where they're using their hands and feet? And it's just like something that is important to moving and living different places is you experience all this stuff and you learn new things and you see different cultures and you see different hobbies and sports, and that's what turns you into the person that you are. So it's like you can go back to New York now and have a conversation with someone and been like, no, I've been to Australia and they don't drink Fosters there, you dummy.
They don't drink Fosters. And I haven't seen an Outback yet.
You have not seen an Outback. Wow, I think I heard on the news that the last standing Blockbuster is either in New Zealand or in Australia, but it's close to you. So if you can sort of MapQuest your way to there.
Check that out. Yeah, I'll have to get out there.
Last question I have
Here's
on
another
Australia.
one.
Oh, yeah.
I got one more for you, though.
Yeah.
So Subaru, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Subarus, first of all, there's a ton of Subarus out here because like it just makes sense, right?
Of course.
To have those kind of cars out in the bush. But a lot of people don't know this. Subaru is not an Australian car brand.
I didn't even think that. What is it? I didn't even think it. Is it Japanese or something?
they're like Japanese or Korean or something.
Why did people have the impression that Subaru was Australian?
Well, if you look at their logo, it's like almost looks like the Australian flag, and
Oh,
all
that's
their cars
right.
are called like Outbacks. It's called like the Outback and like the Forester and all these kind of things like that.
Huh. That's good
So
marketing
I
plan
hope
there.
Australia's getting a cut from that
Yeah.
because they're using their branding for sure.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I never looked at it that way, but like, I mean, a lot of these places model themselves after things that are successful, and Australia is
Yeah,
successful. So why not make a car brand after it? Why not make a
yeah, why
restaurant
not,
chain
right?
after it? Last question I have on Australia, and something it's a little bit more darker, but did Australia have any effects of that shooting that happened in New Zealand? Like, because you are super close to New Zealand, right? I mean, like, I'm people.
Yeah, I mean
make
it's like
fun
a
of me.
3 hour flight. It's like a 3 hour flight there.
So was that big news? Was that like, were you guys on
Huge news.
lockdown? Were you nervous about things? Did things change?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say it's the equivalent of like when you hear like about a shooting, like a big shooting in like California or something like that, right?
Okay.
Where it's like it's close to home because like that's like a fellow state. I mean, New Zealand's a separate country, but like it's almost like a stepbrother,
Yep.
stepsister kind of thing to Australia. So like it hit close to home because there's a lot of people from New Zealand that obviously live in the Sydney area, and they're just like the two countries are so close to each other and like terms of personality and everything that like we had moments of silence and
Yeah.
like all those sorts of things to like kind of commemorate what's going on there. And it was kind of more of a shock because like gun violence isn't a thing out here.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
I'll be honest with you, Sydney's like probably the safest place I've ever lived in my life.
Do you see police officers? What the police officers probably don't even carry like guns or anything, do they?
I think they carry guns, but
Oh,
I
okay.
couldn't even tell you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have no idea. I mean, the biggest problem Australia has is like drunken disorderly conduct. Like that's kind of like the most. So like to hear and see about like gun violence, like it was what was crazy is that it was like shocking to everybody here that it happened in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And like for me, like that's like a Tuesday, right? As an American,
Yeah,
like,
of course. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just like what we're used to at this point.
Yep.
So like the communities came together. What's really interesting is like there's a whole like a big Aboriginal community obviously in Australia. So they kind of as like a minority group, they were doing some like rituals and stuff like that to like appreciate the Muslim community. So like
Nice.
it's the same kind of healing stuff you see that goes on, probably just to like a bigger degree, just because like it happens so rarely, right?
It's sad that we've gotten so numb to it. I mean, like I see stuff on TV that happens in Illinois, and even the newscasters, you can tell, are sort of just reporting this stuff like, they're not even in shock anymore because, like you said, it's happened so often that it's almost just like you're expecting the next one. It's like, when's the next one going to be? Because it's like
Yeah.
we've got all these crazy people out there like that freaking worship Donald Trump. So I was just curious to see what the take was on that side of the of the world, because to us it was almost just
Yeah.
like you said, we've seen it happen before, but it must have just been like our Columbine almost more or less, because
It was kind of like that. It was
You
kind of
know?
like that, or like our Sandy Hook. It was like that kind of thing, right? Where there's
So
there's a
shocking.
couple that obviously stand out. That's like more shocking than some of the other ones.
Yep.
So it was definitely that. I mean, and then they turned around and just like boom, no more assault
Yeah,
rifles.
that was fascinating how
in
they
New
did
Zealand. Boom, like in a second, like it was done.
Incredible. Yeah. Let's change the topic a little bit. Something that you've been working on since you've been in Australia, and going back to the fitness world is, I don't know if is it a business or like something that you've been working on, a website, a program for people called Iron Intel, at Iron Intel on Instagram. So if you want to speak to it a little bit, but
Yeah.
like I said, you've always been into fitness, so this is something that you've sort of spearheaded. If you want to let people know what it's about.
So it's right now it's just like it's a fun project for me and some of my closest buddies who are also in the fitness game.
Who are very like knowledgeable and educated in the fitness world. A couple of them have been strength and conditioning coaches at prominent universities who've played D1 football. So like you're very credible in the people that you've got a guy who's like an engineer on F1 car racing who knows that side of like how like the body could work on people sitting in cars for a while. So you've got a great group of people who run this.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we were kind of the way this all started was I would always kind of watch these YouTube videos of like bodybuilders or whoever, right, to try to like get ideas for workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd like take some notes on like my Apple like Notes app, right? And then after a while, I started like Apple introduced this thing where like you can share your notes.
Mm-hmm.
So like I do it with like my wife for like grocery lists and stuff like that. So I started sharing these notes with my buddy Gabe, who's the Formula One engineer.
Yeah.
And after a while, he's like, dude, like you should post these on like a website because like I'm sure other people might want to see this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know, whatever. So like I started talking to my two buddies who have kind of the real credibility. So the one dude who was a former defensive end in college
Mm-hmm.
and has like he's like a biochemical engineering something. He works in like the supplement field.
And he's built like a truck too. He's
and he's built like a truck. Animal. He like quick funny side story. Like at my wedding, like he was helping us like move some like cases of beer for the wedding,
yeah.
and he goes to bend over to put the box down and just tears his pants.
I remember that.
But anyway, so him, I leaked the idea to him, and then one of my best buddies, who's a strength and conditioning and nutritionist coach for big time college football program,
Mm-hmm.
Started leaking the idea to him, and he's like, look, like let's he thought it was like a good idea to kind of have like, hey, post some workouts and stuff like that, and when we started kicking around like what are we really trying to do here, it's basically like if you go on and you Google like fitness reviews, you get reviews for like P90X, and, like Tybo, and like these like bigger programs. Like, is this a good program?
Yep,
right,
yep.
This and that. But like, there's like so many YouTube videos out there of like from bodybuilders or like amateurs of like posting different like workout routines.
Yep.
And like, no one's vetting those. And if you don't know anything, like you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go do this, and like maybe I can't do that much weight, but like I'm gonna go do this.
Yep.
So we said, hey, like there's some really good videos out there that give some really interesting ideas. So like for someone who's like an experienced builder, like, person in the gym, like, hey, we can provide a centralized, like, place for people to go find these like interesting ideas and watch these videos. And then for people who like maybe are just getting into the fitness game or don't know as much, like we can give like some objective feedback on like, this should only be attempted for experienced like people, or like this machine probably isn't at every gym, but if you can use this one instead, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. And like over the past couple months, we've been doing some posts. I think we have like, 20, 30 posts right now. We've recently started doing some more Instagram game.
Yep.
And right now it's just kind of a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all really passionate about fitness and like helping people be safe in the gym, but also like, kick some butt. We like to say that our target demographic is the people that, kick butt in the office all day and then, hit the squat rack in the evening kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're looking for kind of those gym rats, but people who like, they have that day job and they're hitting the gym after a long day at work, or like after the gym, they're going out to the bars and stuff like that. So we're really real about like, what fitness looks like for like our lifestyle. Right.
Yep.
So like best example, my buddy wrote a blog post on like liver health. And he's like, look, like you're probably taking these supplements and then you're probably going around and like turning right around and drinking like 12 beers at the bar, right?
Yeah.
Watching some football. And he's like, we're not telling you to change. We're just telling like, know what that's doing to your body. And like, if you're going to do that, here's some things like you might want to consider to like help your body recover, or like, here's how you can better listen to your body if like that's the behavior you're doing.
Yeah. No, I think that's
so
awesome.
Like, we're just trying to be real about it, right? Like people have lives, they want to go to the gym and then they want to go out to the club. And like, we're going to be writing about stuff that can like help you do that, safely and knowledgebly.
So will there be actual
comfort.
workout plans on there?
Yeah, there is. So if you
okay,
go
cool.
on the site now, so if you go at Iron Intel on Instagram, we post some stuff. You can get to our website from the bio there, or on the web, it's iron-intel.com is our website. On the homepage, it's just like all of our posts for all the workouts. So like I post stuff from, Jay Cutler, not the quarterback, but the bodybuilding pro, and like Phil Heath and Kai Green and like all these like pros out there. My buddy is big on this guy, Chris Herrera, who does a lot of like body weight stuff, like not big into the heavy weights or things like that. So what we do is when you go and click on any post, you'll see the video in YouTube that you can click on and watch. And most of our videos, we try to target things that are like in the 9 to 12 minute, 15-minute range.
Perfect
Nothing
time,
like it's
yeah.
going to be like a whole commitment. But then we crib the workout at the bottom. So like if you just need to see like what were the actual lifts, it's like you have like the 5 bullets or 6 bullets.
Oh, that's awesome.
With like how many sets, how many reps. And then if you keep scrolling down, there's like a 15-second to 30-second read about, hey, what's this about? And then we have like 3 dimensions that we review the video on. So first is difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
Second is creativity. And then the third one, because like we're in this age of video, is the video quality. Because like you see some potato videos out there that like are just kind of hard to sit through.
Yeah, I'm always suspect of those because everyone's got an iPhone. So if you're posting a grainy video now, there's some shady nonsense
Something going on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. But then on the other side, though, you'll see things that are like super polished, like well edited. But like the workout is like terrible. Like it's like not well designed, or like the rep counts like don't make any sense, or like they put so much strain on these joints and things like that. So like, you know, we don't tell you don't do it. We just tell you like, hey, here's some risks that you want to be aware of. And then I think one of the most interesting things that we've done is this concept of like fitness age. So this is something that one of my co-authors is really big on, which is like, you know, depending on how many hours you've logged in the gym, depends on like how closely he has to watch you during certain lifts. Because like you get to know your body.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You know, you're not going to either cheat reps on one side or like overdo it on the other end, right? So like if you like do a squat and you feel like a little bit of a pull in your hamstring, like people who are older, have a higher fitness age, right? More hours logged in the gym, they might back off the squat and say, all right, I'm going to go to a more isolated movement or something like that, right? Versus someone might be like, oh, I'm going to fight through it and this and that, and like,
that's
you
how
know,
they
end
get
up
injured.
really hurting themselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They
yeah.
get injured, right? And then they're out of the gym for weeks. So
Yep.
we try to like also put like kind of fitness ages for certain lifts, you know, whether it's, you know, a complicated free weight exercise versus a machine exercise, and if you need a spotter, those types of things. So overall, we're, you know, again, it's a passion project.
Yeah.
We really just want to help increase, you know, like, you know, honestly, safety first, as crazy as that sounds, but have a little bit of fun with it, and also be a place where like if your workouts are getting stale, you can go to our site and, you know, filter. Oh, I want a fresh back workout. Hit back, and like it'll show all the back workouts that we've kind of aggregated at the point.
That's awesome.
And you can pick one that you're interested in. Boom, go watch the video and check it out.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because I know when I first started going to the gym, and something I'm doing now is like I have a 10 pass for CrossFit, and CrossFit almost like they'll simplify the workout for you. They'll put it on the board. You go in there, you warm up, and then you do the workout. But I don't have a lot of time to get to their classes because with my schedule, like for whatever reason. So I still have an LA Fitness membership, and I want to get back into doing like isolated workouts. But it's intimidating because there's so many out there, and like I don't want to always like bother my brother, or like, you know, it takes time for people to write out a plan or show you what a good workout is, or it's hard to explain it. So like having like a one-stop shop of like good videos and like almost like a buffer or a filter of all the like shit that's out there on the internet, and like trustworthy people to say, hey, here's a good video, here's a, you know, here are some options of maybe how to scale it or the difficulty of the workout, I think is genius. And it's something that I'm gonna go to the site when I start going back to the gym and like sort of program my own programming from what you guys suggest. And I think it's awesome, and I think it's a no-brainer because, like I said, going to the gym and, you know, like you don't want to be in the gym and pull the weights the wrong way and just have people looking at you funny, like, what the hell is this kid doing? Like, it's intimidating. So like seeing a good video on it and knowing what you're doing beforehand can help you it can prevent you from getting injured, and also just makes you more knowledgeable about what you're doing and not just doing it to do it.
I'm glad. I mean, and you're really our target audience to a large extent, because like, you know, you watch these videos, you watch these like Instagram dudes like doing these workouts, and like what
realistic.
You don't see is that, well, what you don't see is like they're getting like 9.5 hours of sleep, and like their diet is so locked down, right? And it's good, like good on them, right? But like there's a whole set of meatheads and gym rats out there who, like, you know, they also want to have a good time and live their life and, like, you know, crush some wings or eat some freaking raviolis or some whatever, right? Like, so like we're gonna be real about it, and we're just gonna let you have the knowledge and like make your own decisions, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So hopefully people are still with us because my audience isn't as big as Kyle's. So hopefully there's like 3 people still
Stuck
listening
with
that are
us.
gonna
Just
check
stick with
out.
us, please.
I always say, even at the end of Kyle and Corin, I'm like, I hope people stayed with us all the way to the end because this is good intel. So if you shout yourself out in the comment section if you made it to this point of the to the chat. But it's iron-intel.com.
Iron-intel.
Iron-intel.com.
Yeah.
And then at Iron Intel on Instagram. Do yourselves a favor because Randy and his whole crew of people that are running like this are super, 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 super knowledgeable on what they're talking about. So like really take advantage of it because you're getting it at a like a baby.
It's free.
It's
we're not
free. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We're just doing it because we think it's important.
Exactly. So like it's very rare that you get a company or people doing something because they genuinely enjoy doing it. They're obviously always trying. There's a bigger picture at the end for them, but these guys really enjoy and they want to see people better themselves and get healthy, and that's something that Randy's always been passionate about with myself, with some of my friends, and that leads me into my next thing, which is a bad influence on you. So Randy sent me a package earlier in the week, and he had said that this was something that I guess I enjoyed as a kid. I'll let you sort of lead into it, and then I'll open it as you're talking about it.
Yeah, so I sent Corin a little care package because, like I said, he used to come over my house and rate our snacks all the time. And there's some snacks that I don't think you could. I've seen some of the spots you go to get your candy, and those are really impressive aisles. Yeah. I don't think you can find this. I don't think what I'm going to open, what you're about to open, you can find. So show people the box before you open it.
Yeah. So just like that came like this, and I was a little nervous because it's been sitting for like a week or two, so I was a little nervous.
Yeah, it's not going to go bad.
But this is bringing me back. If anybody knows what these are, holy moly. These are Dunkaroos. I haven't seen Dunkaroos since I think maybe our elementary school cafeteria. The only thing I will say, I used to have the Dunkaroos with the vanilla frosting with like the sprinkles.
With the sprinkles, yeah.
The chocolate, I'm not a chocolate guy.
I know you're not a chocolate dude.
But wow, anybody who knows what Dunkaroos are, comment and let us know your thoughts on them. This is bringing me back, man. I was thinking I was nervous because you were like, I'm going to send something. And I was like, what if I don't know what it was? Or what if I don't remember?
I thought about that too.
But dude, I remember sitting in a cafeteria, taking out the little, and it's funny because did you find this in Australia or is this?
That's the thing. They still make it in Australia. They don't make it in the States anymore.
That's so crazy because when you're a little kid, you don't even realize that it's a kangaroo that you're dunking. So Dunkaroo, you're literally dunking a kangaroo. But when you're a kid, you just think it's a cookie and you're dunking it into some sugary So I'm fascinated that this. Well, so I guess Nestle was the company that made them. Wow. Maybe
so
it was
Nestle
Stars.
still makes them out here.
So Nestle, but then there's Stars underneath it. Looks like that was maybe some type of company that maybe Nestle bought out.
So I didn't do the research on this, but apparently, Stars is one of the divisions of Nestle out here.
Okay.
So Nestle was making Dunkaroos under a couple different brands, and I guess they were making it under the Stars brand out here.
Yeah.
But these are the legit or OG Dunkaroos. I tried to get you the white ones with the sprinkles. They do not make those anymore. Really? Yeah. All they make is these chocolate hazelnut ones. These are the only kind I could find.
Wow. So that and there's little. I love my Dunkaroos because they roo shaped just like me. Yep, just dunk them into this delicious dip. Yum. Dunkaroos, the great Dunkin' snack. Hop into them. Wow, man. It's crazy. This definitely brought me back, and it's crazy. It's even just making me think how, times have changed so much that, this was a staple back in the day for people.
Oh, yeah.
Parents would buy them because, how would my parents know what a Dunkaroo was? It must have been in every grocery store. But now it's just fizzled out, and over time, they're not even sold in the U.S. anymore. Or if they are, they're impossible to find.
They're not. No, they're not sold in the U.S. They're not sold in North America at all.
Wow. So, yeah, that definitely just brought me back. I appreciate you selling me those. I'm on my diet. I might have to sneak into them and try them just because that dunking motion was fun as hell. But yeah, thank you. That was a good memory lane right there. But this has been awesome. I mean, like, is there anything else you want to touch upon? I know, you're in Australia. It's morning time for you. It's nighttime for me. So I'm still fascinated that you're about to go, start your day, more or less, and I'm ending my day.
Yep. No, I mean, I don't have no sports picks for you. So I wish I could help you out there. I do think that Texas Tech is going to pull it out. I think they're pretty legit.
You think they'll win the whole thing?
Ooh.
Because Virginia plays Auburn. Texas Tech plays, who was the other?
Michigan State. Michigan State.
Dude, people sleep on Michigan State, but like
they do.
Always there.
They do. So I still listen to PTI, that ESPN show.
Yep.
And they brought me back for a hot second where they were talking about the Michigan State team with Morris Peterson and Mateen Cleaves, the Flintstones. Mm-hmm. Man, I had totally forgot about Mateen Cleaves.
Yeah.
And you and I will have to have a whole nother basketball discussion at some point. But yeah, I think that, people can't sleep on Michigan State anymore because they're like the last, them and Virginia are the last big teams.
Yep.
I think Texas Tech, man, they're hungry. They're going to come in. They're going to surprise people in that game. And then Virginia, I think, Auburn, they lost that one dude with his knee injury.
Yeah, that was bad.
So I think they're kind of done. So Virginia will get through to the finals, and then Virginia, Texas Tech. I don't know.
I'm a little weary of Texas Tech just because their coach, and this is stereotyping, but he looks shady, and he's like a former junior college coach. I'm just nervous that if they win the championship in a year or two, it'll come out that all of these guys are getting paid or getting cars or something.
100%.
Texas Tech is not a team that anybody had on their radar being in the Final Four, let alone the championship if they make it that far. So to me, it's just something shady's going on there with Texas Tech.
Yeah, probably right.
But
you're probably right.
Then again, every school is doing something shady. I'm still mad at Michigan State got no punishment for that whole. Their athletic director was letting that gymnastics coach.
Oh, I know.
He was a Michigan State guy. They didn't take any. There was nothing for that. All these coaches, like Auburn's coach, Bruce Pearl. No, is that his name, Bruce Pearl?
Yeah, Bruce Pearl. Yeah, he's got some.
And he's a fellow Jew, so I get mad because he legitimately destroyed Tennessee's program. They had sanctions and allegations and all this stuff.
Yeah. And
then he's allowed to just go to Auburn and wipe and wash his hands clean and can bring them to the Final Four.
But it wasn't clean. So people don't. I don't know if this isn't getting press or what, but Bruce Pearl's assistant coach is going to jail.
From Auburn?
From Auburn.
Yeah, see this is the stuff.
This Chuck Person. Remember this guy, Chuck Person?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Back in the NBA,
yeah, of course.
So Chuck Person, he's going to jail for this whole Adidas or putting.
He was in on that Adidas thing.
I think he was in on that thing or in on something where he was hooking people up with some financial advisor.
Oh yeah.
So for $91,000, which is what Chuck Person got paid in bribes, he's going to go to jail for 2 years.
Yeah. See, stuff like that. I mean, Bruce Pearl knows this stuff is going on.
100%.
Izzo knew, if he wasn't indirectly involved with the gymnastics thing, he was somehow privy to it. He's the Joe Paterno of that school.
100%.
So the NCAA and their coaches and their double standards with players and coaches is just they're just a greedy, money making, greedy
I'd
machine.
love to see the NCAA go down. They are the worst.
It's just they're so big that it's almost just can it even happen? Who knows? One thing quickly before we go, what's you've said some of the craziest things you've built. What's a project you've worked on in the engineer world that you can really hang your hat on and be proud that wow, I put something like this together?
Oh man, honestly, it's probably what I'm doing right now, which I can't hang my hat on yet because we're not done yet.
Yeah.
So I'm out here building Western Sydney Airport.
Wow.
Which is a brand spanking new greenfield airport in Western Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be if you know DC or in New York, right? It's if they had like JFK and like LaGuardia like around the city, like this is going to be like their Newark. Like it's going to be the big airport just outside the city.
Oh wow.
That's going to have like a lot more traffic, hopefully at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing is going to open in 2026. And like, you know, when I used to work in like the power industry, like, you know, I'd help build a power plant and stuff like that. But like, you can't like go with your friends and family and like go visit a power plant.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You just like flip the lights on. To, oh, look, I helped the electricity get here. But like, when this airport's done, like, I'll be able to fly in and out of it with my friends and be like, yo, I helped build this.
Yeah,
and, like,
that's
I'm pretty excited
special.
about that. I think that'll be pretty dope. But we're a couple years away, and we'll see, man. I think it's gonna be an awesome project.
Are you allowed to bring your water through TSA?
So for domestic flights, yes. Domestic flights?
No, you personally.
No
can you walk through the airport and bring...
No, but no lie, like domestic flights here in Australia, it's just like getting on a bus. Like no one even checks your ID.
Really?
You print out your ticket and you get on the plane. Like,
wow.
It's crazy.
Well,
it's like pre 9/11.
Well, it's a like that's why I'm just so. I think the TSA, maybe they're doing a great job. You know, they stop people from bringing bombs or whatever the hell the case may be. But I'm such a conspiracy theorist to this because now that I have a daughter, we're allowed to bring anything if we say it's for the baby. So we could bring bottles of water, we could bring milk, we could bring hand sanitizer, we could bring shampoos. Yeah. If we say it's for her, they have no problem with it. So like and I don't even want to say I'm like advocating for anybody to do anything, but if you bring a baby with you, say it's for the baby and you'll get it through. All right. If you want to bring, you know, whatever you have, some shady stuff to someone else, bring a baby, say it's for the baby, and you'll be all right.
So I just bring like a bottle of liquor and just be like, oh, it's for the baby.
Yeah, for real. I swear, even if you said that, if you brought some Tito's and we're like, no, we just filled it with water, but like it's for the baby. You're like, okay, have a nice day. And sometimes they check it, sometimes they don't. So it's just like, I don't get TSA. That's a whole nother story. But in other
countries, a whole other story.
I've traveled to Israel, and like their process is like pretty straightforward. It's, you know, smooth, clean. If they think you look suspicious, they got no shame in their game. They'll say, "Hey, you, come here," and they check someone. So
yeah,
I'm sure you've probably heard a lot working on airports, but to your point, I think that'll probably be something so amazing to like leave behind something when you're not even here anymore. Like, building a whole airport is fascinating because I could do all these chats, but no one's going to be watching these shits in 30 years, but everybody will be flying
you don't know that. You don't know
not
that.
30, 100 years, but people will be flying into that airport.
When the aliens land, they're going to be watching this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Randy, this is awesome. Like I said, you're definitely invited back. We'll talk Mets, we'll talk sports, we'll talk more Australia football. I appreciate the Dunkaroos. I appreciate you waking up on your Saturday morning, my Friday night to talk. This has been fun. Thank you, dude.
Yeah. See you, man. Take care.
All right.
Peace.